Welcome to A Better Life. Yes, we want to talk about how to have a better life. Are you confused maybe about life a little bit? Confused maybe about who I am? That kind of thing. Who am I? We're going to talk a little bit deeply about A Course in Miracles and how we can get over that hump of feeling confused, perhaps in a relationship. Yes, feeling confused in a relationship. Just that feeling too of being lost and confused in life. And I also want to, mention the habits of successful people. And, I'm going to talk a little bit about how to do mindfulness meditation and the idea of living beyond your body. Do we really live beyond the body? Or when the body dies, are we just gone and that's it? Like I'd said, who am I? Who really am I? And we want to mention a little bit about your own true calling, that answers to who am I? Hey, everyone, thanks for visiting me today at this For a Better Life podcast. Very early in the morning where I'm at here now in Northeast Ohio, and the sun's not even up yet. And my name is James Nussbaumer, and I am the author, for those of you that don't know me, I'm the author of a great series of books called The Master of Everything. And the pilot starts with The Master of Everything. It's a story of mankind in the world of illusion we call life. And the sequel is Mastering Your Own Spiritual Freedom. And book 3, just so thrilled with, is called And Then I Knew My Abundance, which is still, last week, I know I said it's on its way out. It is. The cover design, it was just approved. All the editing's done, but you know how business deals work and publishers are slow, but it's like going to be in stores right away. Today is January 29th, 2018. And this third book, I'm not going to be, I promised myself I wouldn't be so impatient over it getting out there, because then there's a fourth book that's in the works right now. I mean, it's already written. It's just getting into the publishing works. And book 5 is already written. Book 6 is already written. Book 7, 8, all the way up to book 16 are already written in handwritten journals, for those of you that know my story. From a prison cell. 8 years. But for those of you that don't know my story, you'll have to buy the first book, The Master of Everything by James Nussbaumer, and that will tell you the whole story, and it will explain why I am so aligned with the principles of A Course in Miracles that I just love. And it's all about living beyond your body. Let's get into this right now. Do you ever think about living beyond your body, or ask yourself the age-old question of, what am I, or who am I? Oh, come on. If you're thinking about that, don't think too hard on it, because we all have asked that question, haven't we? In fact, I think I'm thinking about it right now as I sip on my morning coffee. Let me take a sip on this real quick. Okay, that's a good eye opener this morning. But when I ask, when you ask yourself, let's say, about living beyond your body, you possibly feel maybe uncertain a little bit. But then on the other hand, don't you feel a tiny little spark inside of you? Maybe just a little flame kindling within you that knows something in you, some kind of lighted up aspect in you that knows that you are more than just your body? I'm sure you do, but a lot of times you might not want to admit it, but you do. It's why, if you have not already, then I do suggest strongly that you learn how to do mindfulness meditation. And there's many different strategies and techniques based on, what your preferences are. And you can find out more at my website, jamesnussbaumer.com. There's a lot of stuff for you there to look at as far as where meditation, I almost said medication. Meditation is concerned. But when you believe in your body as your domain, the body itself becomes the sacrifice. And what I mean is because of these concrete beliefs that we talked about in last week's podcast and the week before that too. Now we're continuing on about concrete beliefs. But let me repeat that. When you believe in your body as your domain, the body itself becomes the sacrifice because of these concrete beliefs determining what is real and what is unreal. Yes, concrete that splits apart and is never whole. It might be whole in the beginning when you first lay the concrete, like a driveway or a sidewalk or something, but sooner or later it cracks apart, doesn't it, and splits and separates. So anyways, I don't want to, that's just a little analogy I gave you there, but we don't want to dwell on that. But anyways, so you get my idea about the concrete. Put a little parallel in your mind about that as to how your mind thinks, the concrete versus, the abstract that I'm going to mention, maybe just briefly, but because we went into detail on that. I think it was last week or the week before's podcast. But getting into this, but ask yourself this question pertaining to living beyond your body. All right, ask yourself this question pertaining to living beyond your body. Now, I mean seriously too. Where is your concrete way of looking at things going to take you when you are laying there and your body takes its last breath of air and has its final heartbeat? Is concrete thinking going to keep on making projections and assuming the worst, fear and doubt of things? I don't think so. So I hope you can bear with me where I'm going here. Think about that again. Ask yourself, really think about it. The concrete is called the ego-based thinking from the body's brain, rather than deep within inside yourself of who you truly are. Where is your concrete way of looking at things when you are laying there and you are conscious and you're taking your last breath and your final heartbeat? After that final heartbeat ends, concrete thinking is no more. Where is the world then? Ooh, that can be a little bit of a scary thought, can it? Oh my goodness, let me sip some coffee because I'm chilling myself just thinking about that. Oh, that coffee, yes, that coffee stimulated my body. Now I feel a little bit better. But no, see, that's the ego in us all, that fears that thing that I was just talking about, that fear of the end, fear of ultimate death, fear of the inevitable. The ego in us, the concrete part of us doesn't like the word inevitable. Think about that one. So let me just say that, would it not, when you end that kind of thinking, would it not start a process of literally turning concrete thinking to dust? In other words, what I'm saying is, we were raised since and from generation to generation, and things get out of hand. But the world is changing, and we're coming into, you can call it new thought if you want, but my God, it's just, we're growing and we're awakening slowly as humans. So my point is that, when we can face this fear of that final heartbeat head on and fear of that final last breath of air head on, then you're really operating from who am I, right? And when we can do this, would that not start the process of turning those ego-based thoughts into dust themselves, making those kind of thoughts fade away? I think so. So then, how concrete are those thoughts once they fade away and you operate in this world without those kind of wrong-minded, ego-based thoughts that were taught to us from generation upon generation? Well, let me sip on my coffee again, because I don't want to blame generations past, so don't get me wrong. What I mean is generations past meant right. They were trying to awaken themselves. They taught us. You could our grandparents, your great grandparents, on and on, all the way back down through time to all the other people. They were feeling the same way we were, but they weren't as awakened as we are now. Time has time is slowly awakening humanity. So now we're seeing things a little differently. You can call it intelligence, but I say as we awaken, we're becoming more aligned to the universal intellect, which is really who we are within. We're coming to know that more now. So when I say that generations thought only from the concrete, I'm I'm not being critical. I'm being thankful because they taught us to start thinking as we were born into this world and they died off, that there's got to be more to this than just we are a body. So we can look at it as a procession line, so to speak. Now, as you're listening to me, we are in a procession line moving forward as the ones before us are out of the procession line, but now new ones are coming into the procession line behind us, who, when we leave the procession line, they are going to be more awakened than we are. That is how humanity is coming to be whole. I know sometimes it might not think that, might not seem that way with all the violence that's going on in the world and all the things that are scary, but sometimes we take a couple steps backwards too, because the ego is so fearful of the awakening process, because the ego doesn't want to awaken. But the ego really can't think that deep. But anyways, I'm getting a little overboard here, so let's move on. But look at it this way. When you see a brother, sister, and I don't mean of your siblings, it can be that too, but I mean another person. When I say brother, your sister, brother/sister, I'm talking about other people in humanity that you think about being equal to you and whole-minded, who you are whole with, okay? So if I mention that word again during this podcast, brother/sister, you'll know that I'm not talking about your siblings in a physical matter. I'm talking about your interconnection with all of humanity. I'm talking about you who are listening to me being my brother. And I only say /sisters, there's got to be, because we're humans, we have to have some kind of physical overtone in there. So I don't want to be all a masculine overtone. So I'm going to go a masculine / feminine overtone, brother/sister. But really, throw the physical out. And when I say brother/sister, meaning we are just connected, whole as one in the mind, not the body, but really with your spouse or your love relationship. If you have that kind of way of thinking, think of how things could be when you light a candle at night, behind closed doors. That could be interesting, couldn't it? And fun. Okay. Loving, because isn't loving kind of things fun? All right, so you see a brother as his body, separate from yours in this ego-based world, but making your key idea to only see the little part of him/her that you want to see, and then you see the rest as sacrifice. Here's what I mean. Just take a look at the world, and you will see nothing attached to anything beyond itself. Here's what I mean again. I'm trying to go deep on you. I'm in deep water, and I'm trying to pull you down into deep water with me. So bear with me. Don't be afraid of the shallow. Come on in. The water's all right. Every entity will either come close to you or move further away from you. But when viewed as of the concrete, it cannot join. Remember what I just said a little bit ago, that once you lay the concrete down, a brand new driveway or a brand new sidewalk, concrete, eventually the years go by, it starts splitting apart. Concrete never stays whole. As soon as it's laid and dries, it immediately starts working from underneath to start cracking and splitting apart, because it's not permanent. So think about this again. Every entity, as I'm pulling you into deep water, But now I'm going to stop pulling you into deep water right now. And I'm going to ask you to just swim into deep water with me. Take a dive. Come on down into deep water with me. You don't need scuba gear. You don't need to breathe, because this kind of deep water is not about the body. So there's no air. There's no heartbeat. Dive deep. And I'm going to repeat that as we go on. Now, I'm going to pick up speed here because I'm on a time limit. Every entity will either come close to you or move further away. But when viewed as of the concrete, it can never join. Does that make sense? If you're continually going to think from the concrete, you cannot join anything, because all you will do is continually split away. Since humankind was symbolically, and I want to say that again in quotation marks, since humankind was symbolically cast out of the Garden of Eden, that was just a symbolization. That didn't really happen in physical form. That's just, and that's in another podcast. We'll get deep into that. But since humankind was symbolically cast out of the Garden of Eden, humans have gradually built a wall around their hard-earned entities, their bodies, homes, yards, towns, countries, making separation its newfound paradise. Think about this as I run this by you again. You know, since humankind was cast out of Garden of Eden in a symbolical sense, humans have gradually built a wall around themselves. They built a wall around their hard work, their hard-earned entities, even their bodies, their homes, their yards, their towns, their countries, fences around our yards, towns, countries, making separation its newfound paradise. But is it really a paradise? Okay, it's as though we fence off an area, like a little garden, so to speak, in our whole mind, and call it who we are, which is a false representation of who we are, says and teaches A Course in Miracles. There's actually a very, very deep chapter in A Course in Miracles that talks about the little garden. But it's as though we fence off an area like a little garden in our whole abstract mind, and we call it who we are. And outside that fence, we don't want to be bothered. That's kind of like what's the ego is about. But see, it looks as if whatever is within its concrete boundary can never extend outward, and what is outside must never join. And that's just keeping us behind its fence or behind its wall. This might be why it's difficult to think about living beyond your body, because your body is that what's inside that fence, what's inside that wall is your body. And that's why you don't want to go beyond your fence. You don't want to go beyond your body. A Course in Miracles states, do not accept this little fenced off aspect as your real self. And I'm going to repeat that. A Course in Miracles profoundly states in one of its principles, do not accept this little fenced off aspect as yourself, as the real you. You know, each individual's own boundary must sacrifice the other side to keep itself feeling complete in the wrong-minded, ego-based belief that if they joined each other, each one would lose its own identity. That's why we're afraid to get too connected with others, because we're afraid that we might have to go mind to mind and lose our ego identity. So the concrete ego, split mind, I speak of in my books. Please dive into them, because I think you'll love what I write about. But the concrete split mind I speak of in my books have has chosen to view as, other, all that your body fences off in order to become yourself, an illusory identity created through your own sacrifice of the rest. So let me try to rephrase that again. The concrete mind that I'm talking to you about here really chooses to see, anything outside that fence as illusion. And therefore, its identity gives it an identity that makes it feel as though the body must sacrifice. All right, that might be difficult too, because if you're swimming in deep water with me right now, let me just say this. You allow yourself to lose almost everything because you have an identity that can pull you down. Not down into deep water like you are with me now. Can pull you down to keep you inside the fence is what I'm talking about there. You allow yourself, the ego-based mind allows ourselves to lose everything that we are capable of because we're afraid to go outside of that fence. We're afraid to go outside of our boundaries. We're afraid to be limitless. Isn't that the self-limiting belief of the ego-based mind? This, of course, to go outside that fence then would mean to the ego, my God, it would mean we have to sacrifice more to go beyond our boundaries. These self-made boundaries I made, this fence that I put around myself, if I go outside of that fence, I'm going to have to sacrifice even more. Let me sip on another coffee because I love this conversation. The thinking that the world proudly accepts is no pain and no gain. And with this kind of thinking, your belief in separation, your belief in more concrete is who you are, becomes doubly durable, at least you think, being glorifying in its trophies, its awards, both the pain and, or parentheses, sacrifice, we could say, and then the supposed gain again from that sacrifice seems to be the way we live in our mind in a separated, concrete way. But the little part of you that is left now places limits on everything outside. So it starts limiting the outside, just as those same limits are on everything you think is yours, even your own right to be truly joyful without guilt. Think about that. Are we allowed to be joyful and truly happy without some kind of guilt behind it? But living beyond your body, you are totally guilt-free. When you can live beyond that fence, beyond that wall that you build around yourself, you're totally free of guilt. You're totally free of imprisonment. You're a free individual, or we should say a free spirit. In one of my favorite books, City Slickers, real quick, remember that movie City Slickers with Billy Crystal? He plays Mitch Robbins, a delusioned radio advertising salesman, and Billy Crystal, who plays Mitch Robbins, he takes a much-needed vacation at a Western dude ranch out west with a couple of longtime friends. And at the beginning of the movie, he considers whether he really wants to go, but due to all the daily trials and stresses and tribulations of his life, he decides that he's just gonna pull away. He didn't really want to go, but he decided something within him said he had to go. So he thinks the trip will be more trouble than it's worth, and his wife disagrees. Remember the movie City Slickers? His wife disagrees, saying that he has sacrificed enough to himself, to his career, without a break, and never had a break, and never took time off, working around the clock most of the time. But his wife convinced him to consider that there's an urging going on inside of him, that he needs to find his joy for life, which seems to maybe have been lost. In other words, Billy Crystal in the movie, Mitch Robbins, was afraid to go outside that fence that he set up for himself. Well, during the course of the movie, Mitch Robbins comes to agree that, which is Billy Crystal again, comes to agree that he has lost something and starts to understand the value of laughter and just being happy and the joy of bliss and having fun without consequences. At the end of the movie, the end of the story, when Mitch Robbins gets home, he sees that nothing has really changed, but everything within him has changed. You know, he has the same problems, but now he has more of a zest for life. He is able to, we could say, embrace the problems with a renewed sense of blissful joy and a sense of commitment to his true calling. Have you ever thought about your own true calling? Or have you just put it off as some kind of fantasy? We know many people today are in the same place that Billy Crystal had played, was the start of, many people are in the same part as the character Mitch played. And it was at the start of when Mitch was at the start of the movie. They have lost any joy they once had in their hearts. But the days ahead look flat and repetitive and ongoing, is boring and monotony and all this in our life, as an assembly line can be sometimes, doesn't it? Oh, I remember my days as a financial advisor. It just drove me crazy, and that was what led to my problems. It brought me down to my fall, which made me hit rock bottom and crash, which you'll find out more in my books. I'm not going to dwell on that here because this is not the time for it. But so the days ahead sometimes, look flat and repetitive, we could say, is boring and, this is boring and full of doom and gloom as an assembly line. And it seems to be the same old concrete. The concrete is boring. This state of mind makes it more difficult to fathom living beyond your body. When you're thinking inside that fence, when you're thinking from the concrete, when you're thinking inside that fence that you build around your body and calling your body as your home, when you're thinking from that state of mind, that ego-based, wrong-minded state of mind, it's more difficult to fathom living beyond your body. Faced with this prospect of endless repetition, people lose themselves in the world, a world that we made. That's when we say, life's a bitch, then we die. That's how we carry that attitude. But they feel dull when we think that way and believe that continued sacrifices are necessary so that one day we can have fun. We keep beating a dead horse, thinking we got to sacrifice so that one day we can have fun. That's the insanity of the ego-based mind, the concrete. Hey, before I close here, there's another thought-provoking article at my website called Solving Your Problems in Life and Rather Living a Life of Purpose Instead. Here's to living beyond your body as I sign off. But before I go, please let me say that I invite you to sign up for my Everyday Miracles newsletter. And please, follow me on YouTube. If you're at my website right now, in the header above and the footer below is a YouTube icon. You can click on it. And if you're at YouTube right now as you're listening to me, right now in this instant, click on subscribe. I would appreciate it because I want subscribers, people that want to hear what I have to say. So, also take a look over at Amazon.com and about my books, just punch in James Nussbaumer, or you can go to Ozark Mountain Publishing Company. Yes, Ozark Mountain Publishing Company, a mainstream publisher that I am so happy to be a part of their family, are publishing my books right now. And I hope the relationship continues. And I really see a never-ending relationship because we're at one with each other. We think in the concrete. We don't think in the concrete, excuse me. We look at each other and see each other abstractly, whole-minded. And please support my work, if you would. Follow me on Twitter. I love Twitter. Please go to Twitter. Just look up James Nussbaumer. I think my handle is JASNUSS, Jasnus. If you're at my website, there's a Twitter thing. You can click on it. And follow me on Facebook. I have a regular page and a fan page too. Click on there and follow me. Send me some messages. And by the way, I'm getting a lot of messages today. Before I put this on the air and recorded this, but there was most of the messages I needed to leave till next week because it didn't fit in with answering the questions about what's going on today. So I hope this all made sense about living beyond your body. How A Course in Miracles has helped me to dive into understanding that, hey, life is eternal. I wish the best for you. Are you thinking about your own life and how great you are? I hope you are, because you're awesome. You are literally awesome within. Did you know that we're connected? You and I, we are. We're connected. We're the one mind. We are connected within the one mind of God. We are all as one of his creation and one with him. I guess that might mean that we are God. Oh boy, when we say that, doesn't the ego want to jump in there and say, how dare you say you are God? This is not supposed to be a preaching sermon, but this is just food for thought because we're one with the universe. And I'm going to close with this statement. Another thing that A Course in Miracles teaches us is that, the ego in us, the concrete aspect in us, has always taught us that, God's will is somewhere outside of us. But that's what the ego wants us to think, because the ego is not of God's will. The ego mind. God's will is for example, God's will is your true free will. Your true free will. What's true in your heart and what you are about in this world, what you want to do, that is God's will. And if you deny that, you're not being a sinner. No. All you're doing is siding with the ego rather than God. You're siding with the concrete rather than the abstract. And that's why nothing will get done, and you will think that sacrifice is the only way to achieve things. Gotta go. Stick to the abstract. You don't need to sacrifice. And I'm not talking about doing the little ugly things sometimes we don't like to do. That's not sacrifice. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about what you need to do in life. Go within. Listen for messages. Listen inside of yourself. What is your heart telling you to do? Gotta go. James Nussbaumer signing off. Thanks again. I wish the best for you.